Good morning, everybody. This is Skaven Plays, and today I'm going to talk about how to play a little bit around the Sloppity Bilepiper. I've been playing a lot of games as Nurgle. I usually get 3 to 4 a week, at least, and a lot of people hear the same thing, that they don't like to play around Bilepiper, or they don't know how to, and it's not easy, it's very tricky. I'm going to go around it. I'm going to go through a few different scenarios and how I would try and deal with the Bilepiper. First thing I want to show you guys is what the bileper does and why people hate it. Let's see, we have this song right here. My love is like a ripe, ripe fart. It gives them a 14-inch bubble of if you're engaged with the bileper, then you don't get to pile into that unit. There are a few things you can do to play around this. Honestly, not that many. A lot of it's how you deploy and how they can get on you to play around. There's another effect that I want to go over really quick that is a little bit different. The bilepiper's effect specifically says model in that unit. And that's an important distinction because we have a section on our wheel called Nauseous Revulsion that does not have that note. So if you have the bilepiper one on you, you can at least pile around the unit and stay at the same distance. If this one is here, you cannot pile anywhere unless that is the last Nurgle unit alive. It's something that's very important, and you can't do any tricks with this one. You can do a few tricks with the bileper one. So, first thing I would say is it's mostly about your unit placements. If you see something like this and you have Voidry in the back, you might think that your Voidry is fairly safe. Well, if I have a bileper nearby, the first thing I'm going to do on the charge is I'm going to charge here, sit on this corner, outside of 3 of Voidry, and then I'm going to pile right on into Voidry. And now Voidry is stuck. He only has his 3-inch attack to deal with the unit of Nurglings, and there are 2 Graveguard that get to swing at this Nurgling. Not to mention this other Nurgling is probably going to go around like this. And this will be the first Nurgling to die. Now the Graveguard can't attack. They are still piled in. And Voidry is also stuck. If you have this kind of scenario, always keep your big monsters firmly behind and away. You don't want them to be able to sneak in a Plague Bear, a Nurgling, or anything, and then pile in around and tie you up. I have won games just because I can do that maneuver and tied up a big Prince Voidry, an Ogre, anything like that. Mega Gargants even. Next thing I would say to consider, a unit like this Gargantus that has a 6 block, has to worry about coherency a lot and stuff like that. They are beautiful to tag because they're usually in an awkward position. They're either in this or they're in this V kind of formation walking down like Vanguard, which I honestly don't see very much anymore. But they will try to tag them on the corner by any means possible because this is usually an expensive unit and they are now tied in, and one of them at best is going to attack you. If you have these units, try and keep them far back. Although Gorgunches usually don't have the problem because they usually move fast enough and they get the charge. But if you don't think you're going to get the charge, or say it's an 8-inch charge or better without a reroll, I don't know if I'd risk it, because if they get that and they get the counter charge on these units, they are tied up for 1 to 2 rounds at least. But there are 3 different ways of the things you need to use for the bileper. They'll usually have Nurglings that they summon in. Those are fun little things, but you'll usually see them coming. You'll usually see the Plague Bears coming. They're usually just going to walk on a point very slowly. These Beasts of Nurgle can be tricky. They're a lot less durable, but they can run and charge. You can auto-6 this thing and charge it in. And if they have a Horticulus Slamix, which a lot of Demon lists do, they have a reroll to that charge. So it's less durable, but they can use this to tie up something halfway across the board without you realizing it. It's something to keep an eye on. Although, if I was going to be tied up, this is the unit I'd want tying me up because it is the least durable of all of them. Units of Mortek Guard, or anything like this, the Graveguard or whatever, try not to keep this sort of formation if you can. You know that you're going to get hit. You want to try and increase your surface area if you can. Something with a small basis, try and kind of spread out a little bit more. This does 2 different things. One, if I corner tag you, then say you take some disease points and your models die, it is easier for you to remove and get out of combat than it is if you were double layered. Even if you have to do something like this with the two pieces on the corner, and then leave an extra guy in the center. So you don't have to completely wipe half the squad if they take damage. You can only wipe up a little bit, but that will let you unengage yourself and get yourself a charge in the next turn. That's something I found to be very important, especially when I play Skaven against Snuggle. I only play Pestilence and a little bit of Molder. This is the one that you'll see coming. It's a reinforced group of Plague Bears. 9 out of 10. This is just going to send out a point. If you see a big brick of Plague Bears on the point and you can't get a really good charge in, I mean you need a 5 and you roll a 9 kind of a charge, leave them there. That's their point. Focus somewhere else on the field. You're not moving them unless you have an Ogre on a Thunder Tusk or something, or a Frost Horn or a Mega Gargant. They're not going to move. They are durable, they're tanky, they're probably going to have 3 wounds because you got the spell off, and there's this little no pile and lovely musician behind them. One other thing to worry about with your deployment, or just where your positioning is, never keep big monsters close to each other. If these guys move in and I get a charge, pile around, it's going to be the same exact thing as over there. I am within 3. And there is now nothing you can do about it. You didn't even get your double monsters action, because half the time these are going to be at hunters anyway if you're on a break of 20. So this Frosthorn has to pile through an average of 40 to 60 wounds with a 5-up board. They're not going to do that in 1 turn. They're probably not going to do it in 2. I just tied this unit up for free, and now this one's just going to be fighting, getting a bunch of disease, and I might even die, depending on rolls. Not likely, but by the time this is all freed up and everything, either something else is coming to finish them off, or they're weakened. And that's also points you don't want just sitting on the other side of the field doing nothing for 2 turns, which is great. And let's see, honestly the best defense to this is it's all positioning. You have to try and keep everything well away. If you're playing something like Fire Slayers that's a little bit slower, you don't really have that luxury. You've got to hit a good charge. If you don't think you're going to hit the good charge or there's a chance of it, try and stay away. Even if you take a point, even if you take a turn where you're not getting 2 points, you only have the 1 in your battle tactic, that is worth it. Because if you'll be a little down on points, you have to climb back up. But you're not having all of your army tied up. Obviously that's not going to work if the Nurgle guy goes in and hits a 9-inch charge on you. But I think it's still better to stay back. Because having your army actually do something the next turn would be more viable. Say I have a big brick of 20 Mortec Guard like this and I'm tagged like this, I wouldn't sit and fight it out. I would retreat and hope I got a double turn if I was going second. If they force you to go first and you have the priority, obviously that's not going to work, so you may as well stay in and fight it out. But that's the best way I've found to do it. Like if I have somebody tied up like this and they can retreat and then they get the double turn on me, now they can wrap that unit of Plague Bears and probably wipe them out. I've noticed big models like monsters and stuff don't wipe out Plague Bears as much. It's just little groups of infantry. Mortec Guard, I think it's Volkite Berserkers, I'm not sure, I don't remember which Fire Slayer is the murdery one. But those kinds of things, especially Grave Guard, will just mop through them if they get a good charge. So the Nurgle player will try and not give you that charge if they can. Also keep in mind that if the wheel is on the stage, it is -1 to charge as well. A lot of people forget that, they just focus on the pile-on thing, but that is important. Especially I've had a couple of Night Hunt players get upset about that. And a lot of people I hear recommend just shooting off the Bilepipers. I don't recommend that unless you're already in combat. If you're already in combat, I would say shoot off the Bilepiper with everything that you can. Don't skimp on it. If you miss or you don't get enough damage in there because you split attacks or something like that and this guy lives on 1 wound, you've just ruined most of your turn. Because your big unit of melee snakes or your Mortec Guard or your Grave Guard, they don't have money shooting to worry about, but you know what I mean, are all stuck in combat. And that can ruin a battle tactic, that can just ruin combat for you. You can tie up things that you don't want tied up. So I recommend putting everything you have in there and make sure he dies. The only bad thing about that is this guy costs 7 points to summon. I'm getting 3 for just being in my starting area. So as long as I have 1 unit in this red, I have 3 points. If I have a group of Nurglings that I summoned in your area, just hiding in the corner, that's 3. And if I have the tree that I start with, that's 1. I'm going to summon this guy 1 turn, 9 out of 10 in the demon list for free every single turn. So he's going to come back. The only way you can really prevent this is if you have a larger army than they do, which some armies might. Try and get around edges of it. If you can leave them without the 9-inch zone to summon, then you can block that off. You're not going to be able to do that 9 out of 10. If you can, great, you did it. But a lot of times it's not going to happen. You just need to be within 9 of the heroes and kind of box them off from getting the bilepiper anywhere useless. Like say there's just a good little setup here, and you can at least try and make it so they have to summon the bilepiper off to the side, and it only affects a certain number of units instead of the whole group. But either way, don't expect the bilepiper to be gone forever. Expect them to bring in a new one every single turn, because that will be their priority. But yeah, it's all about positioning. You need to try and keep things back. Don't take engagements if you don't need to. Even use a unit as bait. Like say I've got a group, let's just pretend these are our boys, and I have them just sitting in the front. I would have my Gorgontas back here. Somewhere that a unit cannot get a good charge and pile in and tie me in. You do not want them to have any chance at piling in and tying them up, because this is your unit to save this unit. Even though it's our boys, you don't care about our boys. But it's keeping them back, and a lot of people don't want to play reserved with their units. The game can be determined in the first turn or two, but you can also just swing it back later. Giving up a few points early to play around one of the key points in your opponent's army is well worth it. Just something to keep in mind. And that's pretty much the only way to play around bilepiper. There's a lot of positions where you're not going to be able to play around the bilepiper. You're going to get tied into them. Melee armies like Orcs, Graveguard, can't deal with bilepiper very well. And it's just something you're going to have to try and struggle with. You're not going to be able to get in there and charge and kill the bilepiper. I've seen Fire Slayers fail to kill a bilepiper with a single unit. Sorry, Mitch. And it's really sad to see, because the bilepiper is extremely strong, but it can dictate a large portion of the game. That being said, besides the bilepiper and the Great Unclean One, the demon side of Nurgle is extremely weak. So if you can manage the bilepiper and you can manage the Great Unclean One, you actually have a really good chance of winning that game. It's all about managing him and not letting the Great Unclean One run all over you and destroy everything. Which, you're not killing the Great Unclean One in 1 turn, 9 out of 10. He's very strong. But those are my different recommendations. The things I've noticed that don't really care so much about the bilepiper is stuff with retreat and charge. If there's new Nighthaunt down, wouldn't even bother summoning a bilepiper half the time. It's not going to do much, or if he's there, he's going to be doing the damage ones, because new Nighthaunt is retreat and charge, and yeah. But most armies don't have that luxury that Nighthaunt does. But yeah, those are my recommendations. And good luck to everybody. I hope that there was something useful here. I'll leave a comment if you left anything out or have any questions. Like I said, I have a lot of experience from the Nurgle sides of things, and I will be uploading more videos regularly. I'm going to try and do 2 to 3 a week for a little bit to get everything started. If you guys are here from my video on the Mini Wargaming channel where they gave me a shout out, thank you very much, I appreciate it. And if you haven't seen that video, I'll put a link in the description when they post it. Alright everyone, have a good day.